I've not taken anything yet. I think it's just been a case of I'm going to speak with the medical team, and that's a decision I'm going to potentially make. You're not obliged to take any performance enhancing thing. An enhancement, you're not obliged to take anything. You can run as a unenhanced athlete, and you can run as an enhanced athlete. The decision is totally yours. Part of it, obviously, there's obviously a nice, compensation package. Another part of it is just the general support from the actual company in terms of like the resources and stuff that I need to be an athlete.
You've made this announcement, but how did you get there? Why are you taking part in what is a controversial event?
I think for me, obviously I made the decision, to retire early in track. Obviously it was quite a difficult decision for me, talent that I possessed for quite a long period of time. I had a year of you'd call potentially like a transition year. But behind that, deep down, obviously still kind of missed track. I was trying to figure out, what it is that I wanted to kind of do next. And then had a conversation with the EG, and we just kind of spoke about different things. They kind of presented the whole picture to me. It took a little while to think about it, spoke to some of my close family and friends, and then kind of just came to the decision that, I'd like to, run for another couple of years, see how fast I can continue to go and participate in a new event.
That decision, how difficult was it? Was it easier because of the situation you found yourself in? How was retirement? How did you cope with that financially and emotionally?
I think for me, retiring, obviously financially was pretty hard. I had a pretty good contract with Nike. And then obviously the day when I didn't obviously meet my target, it kind of was then cut. And then, I kind of spent that initial 3 to 6 months period speaking to, different sponsors, all the brands, Nike, Adidas, Puma, Under Armour, On, Diadora, Hoka, anyone that was kind of in the sports realm, asking for a good contract, even half expenses, just kind of anything that would kind of keep me being able to just train. I was happy to kind of go down to the bare minimum of just expenses, but, no one wanted to give me anything, which was quite tough. And it was then just having to make a decision where it's well, you've not got any support within this industry anymore. So I guess your time's kind of come to an end. So then I made the decision that was to finish athletics. And then, you look online, it's athlete transitional programs. There's one called LAPS, there's one called Mojo. I spoke to some of the guys there, and it was more going into a corporate situation, or, transferable skills. Kind of just starting from the end, starting from the beginning. I then went on to, Indeed, made myself a CV. And then you kind of just shot my CV out into different things that I think I could, potentially be interested in. But it was a whole big reset, for me, which was quite tough.
Presumably the motivation behind entering these games is purely financial.
I think for me, don't get me wrong, part of it, obviously, there's obviously a nice, compensation package. Another part of it is just the general support from the actual company in terms of the resources and stuff that I need to be an athlete. Things like a nutrition. I have access to a great nutritionist. I have access to a chef. I have access to a really good medical, in terms of chiropractic, soft tissue. In terms of just that athlete support, it is there. But then I think also sometimes just the element of competition. I'm used to being sub-10 guy. I'm used to racing against people, that thrill, that adrenaline. It's kind of what I know. But then I think coming back onto this side of the fence, I just kind of get to run 100 meters again, But
you're getting to run 100 meters against guys who are taking performance-enhancing drugs, and presumably you will be too.
No, for me, like I said, I've not taken anything yet. I think it's just been a case of I'm going to speak with the medical team, and that's a decision I'm going to potentially make. But the first interim for me is, like I said, for me to just get fit, improve my start again, improve my finish, and just train again. Really, that's going to be the first priority. And then it's I think sometimes people also need to be aware that you're not obliged to take any performance enhancing thing. An enhancement, you're not obliged to take anything. You can run as a unenhanced athlete, and you can run as an enhanced athlete. The decision is totally yours.
Just to be clear, though, at this moment, you're not taking anything, but you're not ruling it out.
For me, this moment, I've not taken any enhancements. I think for me, it's going to be a decision with, I'll speak to the medical team and the doctors and see if that's something that I would like to do. But my first initial thing right now is for me to just enjoy training again, do drills, get fit, and just feel what I used to feel. I know how fast I can run without any sort of enhancements. I've ran sub-10 multiple times, getting down to that level with pretty solid resources. Now I've got some more. So I think let's just see what the extra support, initial support looks like, and then potentially will be a private conversation with the medical team, and we'll kind of go from there, really.
Do the health risks potentially not concern you?
If you didn't have like a solid medical team and in-depth medical team and the guys that are all qualified, I think there'd be more of a health risk. But I also think there's so much safety and there's so many protocols with enhanced that if anything, I actually know more about myself now from a health perspective than I did before. And in the future, if I want to enhance, the team is totally safe. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. But for now, I think the initial is just getting fit again.
You just outlined what you achieved in your international career. I mean, you were Britain's 5th fastest man, which is an extraordinary level to get to. Are you concerned that people now will look at you completely different and that reputation will be tarnished by what you've decided to do?
I think in one instance that I can totally, people will necessarily say the reputation to be tarnished. But I think for me, the way I've kind of looked at it and seen it is that I did that chapter for, from the last 12 to 15 years. I never had one violation against my name. I competed cleanly. I ran as fast as I could. And then for me, and now this is like a different chapter.
In a way, though, you are promoting performance-enhancing drugs just by taking part in these games.
Ultimately, there's not necessarily a comparison because I think, you have the World Championships, you have the Olympics, you have the European Championships. These are governed by IWC. Why there are rules in that spec, if that makes sense. And then in the enhanced games, we have our competition and we have a set of rules and we have our competition format. Obviously, like you said, it's sprinting. It is the same thing. The 100 meters are 100 meters, but I think ultimately they're two different entities, if that makes sense. Because what happens in the Olympics, the World Champs, British athletics, all that kind of thing is one thing. But what happens in EG is a completely different format.
The problem is those industries do not respect what you're doing now, do they? Jack Buckner, you will have heard saying he found the news appalling, and we all know what Seb Coe thinks about these games. He called them grotesque.
Well, I think for me, like I said with Jack, obviously I know Jack on a personal level. I know Paul, I know British athletics, but they also have to recognise that I retired, over 12 months ago. I finished. I left that industry. There was a clean slate. Obviously now, for the last 12 months, you move on. These people are going to check up on you. You go on to a different chapter, So for me, the way I see it is that now I'm doing something different. But now I'm doing something different. Everyone, is going to obviously have their opinion and say stuff about it. But I've not got any bad blood to say towards Jack. I've not got any bad blood to say towards British Athletics or Seb Coe or anybody. I think from my point of view, if I was to speak to Jack, I'd just say to Jack, let's just focus on providing the best service for the British athletes that are under you now, making sure they're happy and they're looked after. Because at the end of the day, I'm one athlete. There's probably another 200 athletes that are still actively competing. There's probably another 300 that are still in the next generation. So focus on helping them and doing what they was doing, because realistically, like for me, once I stepped away, I had to figure out what I was going to do next. I had to go and look for jobs. I had to reach out to friends. I was, 5 a.m. doing removals with one of my friends' removal companies, then going from there and doing PT for 7 hours, then going from there. I was working as hard as I can. I had to figure out what it is that I wanted to do next. And during that time, the only support that I had were my close friends and my family.
In a way, it seems to be saying that, the sport used you, or you believe the sport used you, spat you out when you weren't useful to it anymore, and left you to your own devices. So almost, in a weird way, they're to blame for where you are today.
Well, I think, like I said, athletics obviously I think I'll never discredit it because it taught me so many things about, being resilient. I got to travel the world. I got to meet great people. But ultimately, like we said, when my contract came to an end, and I asked every single person within the industry, all the agents, all the sponsors, can I, have a contract for a year, 2 years, 6 months, 3 months to the nationals? If you get, 1,000 no's and you're just asking and no one wants to help you in the industry, what do you do? So I did the right thing. I left, and then I had a year to myself. And I think during that year, obviously still miss running. I still saw my friends, nationals and all these kind of things. An opportunity presented it for itself, and I said, you know what? Like, I've only got one life. I want to run. I still want to run for a couple of years. I think I can do sub 10. Someone's going to give me a good package to support me. So I took the jump. Yes, it's controversial. I can understand it, but like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion, you know.